Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
When we need to do something that is opposite of hustle culture, that is opposite of like, go, 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 win, 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 I think it does feel like failing because we've sort of been brainwashed that we're supposed to be always on. We're supposed to be always succeeding. We're supposed to be always striving, and we're supposed to be always seeing results. It's like in our minds for our business and our lives. If you think about the XY axis, it's like we imagine that this line is always supposed to go up and to the right, like a straight line, right? Like it's only more success, only more achievement, only more money, only up. That's how I know I'm winning. And I think that's not life at all. And the cool thing is that life is an adventure because it's not like that. And you don't know what to expect. And so I think ultimately, right? Failure is when you stop getting up. Failure is when you don't heed the signs and you do things that are completely out of alignment with what you need and want when you don't take care of yourself.
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Did you grow up learning the phrase, quitters never win and winners never quit? Me too. And I've lived with what feels like a lifetime of gritting my teeth and pushing through so many things I now question. I wonder if our focus on not quitting has kept us from being discerning about what is meant for us. And when time is up on a person, event, or experience, I wonder if our focus on not quitting, which could be considered failing, clouds our perspective on what we truly need. The fact is, breaks can be good. I don't mean the kind Ross and Rachel were on. I mean the kind that's intentional and purposeful and allows you the distance and healing you need to make the next right steps. Today, I welcome Katrina McGhee to the Positively Living Podcast. Katrina is a career break and sabbatical coach, a certified life coach with an MBA who helps 9-to-5ers design life-changing breaks to create happier, more fulfilling lives. Katrina is an enthusiastic world traveler and digital nomad. Her advice on career breaks, money management, and international travel has been shared across various websites, blogs, and podcasts, including Forbes, Smarter Travel, and HuffPost. Katrina has taken multiple career breaks of her own, so she understands well what they entail and how beneficial they are. Today, she shares her story of a business coaching break, which will resonate with my fellow entrepreneurs. We discuss the warning signs to look for when a break might be necessary, and we talk about what to do with that break once you're in it, whether you planned it or not. We also cover how to approach re-entry into your career or business once your break is complete. Our conversation covers so many elements of prior Positively Living podcast episodes, such as fear, change, authenticity, and trauma. Once again, you'll hear how critical it is that we release the hustle culture mentality and understand how productive a break can be. Let's join Katrina to learn the benefits of a business sabbatical and how we can try it for ourselves. Welcome, Katrina McGhee, to the Positively Living Podcast. I am so delighted to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here today. This is going to be good. I know it.
I can feel it too. So would you start by telling us a bit about who you are and who you help and what makes you light up?
Oh, yes, I can. Hi, everyone. I am Katrina, and I am a career break and sabbatical coach. And so what that means is that I get to help people leave jobs, leave careers, take the break that they need, find ways to restore themselves, find ways to heal burnout, move through stuck points, or just live life, really feel alive. And so I help them everywhere from planning the break with intention and thought so they can make sure that it's wildly successful moving through the break. And then I also help people on reentry figuring out what comes next and kind of what they want to do and how they're going to process that whole experience that they just had. And so that is what I do. And, it definitely aligns with my own experience in life and kind of what I've gone through having had a corporate career and then taken a career break and then become an entrepreneur and then taken another career break. But I'm wildly passionate about it. And so I am on a mission to help people be able to reclaim their life, even if it's a few weeks, a couple months, a year, 2 years like I did.
Yeah, doesn't that sound good too? I love that. Of course, I'm all about let's beat the burnout, right? But also too, this idea of truly living our life and gaining perspective. And I can also feel, I think, especially because we're recording this as we are essentially, I think, worldwide coming out of a pandemic, fingers crossed. And this feeling of just needing a break, you know what I mean? And the idea that this is possible. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this today, because I'm like, this is fascinating. And this is the kind of thing that I think so many people probably think I couldn't possibly, or how would you, or is that even a thing? It's a thing. Yay. Okay. So let's explore that. But I think it'd be great if we began with your story, because classically this happens so many times, same with me, where you go through something and you're like, okay, I figured it out. Let me show others. So what happened with you, Katrina?
Yeah, I have a very long and twisty path, but I think the most relevant place to start and the most sort of like key place to start is when I was working a corporate job. So I was working a corporate job. I had been certified as a life coach. I was building a business. And, this first version of my business, I was really excited about it. I was hustling so hard. I was working evenings, weekends, taking clients, and then working my corporate job, which was pretty demanding. And then
Mm.
eventually, right, that goes on for about a year. I'm like, yes, it's time to go full time. I'm going full time in my business. It's going to be sunshine and roses and it's going to be the best thing ever. And it was not the best thing ever, Lisa. It was not the best thing ever. I really struggled. So, this is what was true for me in that first version of my business. I was trying really hard to do all of the strategic things. I have an MBA. I had spent, over 15 years in corporate America. I knew how to do the things. And so when I decided to launch my coaching business, I was focused on helping people through career transitions. And I had even hired a media company. And we're talking like, over $10,000 invested to work with them and create things like a podcast and a course and to just really show up in a big way. But they really wanted me to have a broader umbrella of what I talked about. So career breaks and sabbaticals were too narrow or too nichey. So they're like, let's talk about unconventional career success. So maybe that's a career break. Maybe that's becoming an entrepreneur. Maybe that's, transitioning into something that feels unfamiliar. And so I was really struggling once I had gone full time in my business to make my business work, to have that click. I was attracting amazing clients, like the people that were coming were amazing, but I was having trouble growing and I was having trouble feeling really good and really inspired with what I was trying to create. And so within that struggle, I tried to do the old, corporate push through, like what we all know, right? Just suck it up and keep going. And I did that for 6 months. And finally, being a person that had had a life coach that had been trained and certified, I knew I'd hit some wall that I needed to go a different way around, right? Like I wasn't going to like knock the wall down. I needed to walk around it. I just ended up sort of accidentally on career break number 2. So I had taken one before, but this break, the first break was super planned. This break, not planned, not budgeted. Like I was just out of sorts and very surprised that I was going to have to stop everything and just reevaluate where I was. But that was what was true for me. And so I really leaned into that. And I basically walked away from my business. I would take people if they passed my way through referral or saw my website. So it was very passively taking people, but I stopped advertising, marketing. I mean, I was doing nothing for my business.
And so that was one of the questions, was how it kind of happened or came about, because I think sometimes when we hit overwhelm or we feel like it's just not working or really not aligning somehow. And so that's, I think, what you're describing was happening, right?
Absolutely. Yes. It's like everything in my brain said, this should feel so good. You should be so inspired. This should feel amazing. And it's aligned, Katrina. But inside, it was feeling like a struggle every day. Everything felt overwhelming. Everything felt hard. Everything kind of I felt resistance, right, to a lot of
Yeah.
the things that I was supposed to be doing.
Did you consciously step back Or do you think it was more of this? I mean, that's a protective mode that we go into, right? This is why procrastination, it's not always oh, what's wrong with me or I'm lazy or whatever, but sometimes it's this protective kind of like, I need a break and my brain is going to do it for me if I'm not going to make that choice. What was it for you? Did you feel like it was just a natural like a pullback and you didn't even notice it for a while? What happened exactly?
There was definitely a pulling back in procrastination, but it was seeing that I wasn't showing up that was becoming quite the problem. So the actual break for me there was so much mind drama in it, Lisa. Like I pulled back sort of inherently in a procrastinating way, but I was still pushing, right? Like I was still trying to do things. It was the moment where I was like, I'm getting nothing of meaning done. And the things that I'm doing don't feel good. Like it just didn't feel good. I had the most amazing clients and I would help them on the call, but I would get off the call and I would just be like, oh, that's not the feeling I want to have. That's not what your life coach should feel like after coaching you. And it wasn't them. It was me. It was totally me. And so I think I had to take a courage pill. I had to swallow a courage pill and really say, I've got to fully disconnect, right? Instead of pushing things off that I don't want to do or pushing off everything that's not necessary and doing the procrastination, which I had been doing, for several months. It was really owning, I have to disconnect from this situation.
That kind of goes into what I wanted to talk about, which is this idea of, what are the signs or the red flags that it's time? How do we distinguish between, okay, you're burnt out a bit and you just need to step back versus you need to step away? I think there's a big distinction there.
There definitely is. It can be a little bit nuanced, but I think ultimately, right, what you're mentioning in this step away, like really step away, you have tried, right? I think that is the point where you have tried. I'm not saying never try, like always try, right? Always try the simple things. Sometimes the simple things are the answer. But I think everyone knows they've reached that point where they've tried the things and the things aren't working. And it's kind of like this denial. And I think a lot of what you hear in your mind is crap talk on yourself, right? Like, I'm just not good enough. Why is it easier for everyone else? I'm just doing it all wrong. I'm never going to figure this out. Like, we all have those moments of doubt, but when you feel like an avalanche of negative self-talk coming onto you, that can be a really good sign that you need a little perspective, right? Like you need a reset. Now, how long the reset depends kind of on your issue and your situation, right? But I think that's an excellent indicator that you need to disconnect, even if it's for a short time, from what you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. The magic of red flags, they sound so scary. We talk about them, it's red flag, but the magic of that is that they are signs. And if we pay attention to the signs, we can make choices accordingly. So you're right. If you are stepping back and the stepping back is still not accomplishing what you need to accomplish, then there's a stepping away. I'd love to dig into these levels of stepping away and how, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about this idea of how making this choice, this conscious, intentional choice to step away is not failing.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay, full disclosure, because I like to keep it real.
Please.
When I was in it, it felt a little bit like failing, right?
Yeah. Ask me how I know, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend it did not have the essence, the taste, the aftertaste of failure. Yes. But here's the thing, right? I think so many times when we need to do something that is opposite of hustle culture, that is opposite of like, go, 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 win, 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 I think it does feel like failing because we've sort of been brainwashed that we're supposed to be always on. We're supposed to be always succeeding. We're supposed to be always striving and we're supposed to be always seeing results. It's like in our minds for our business and our lives. If you think about the XY axis, it's like we imagine that this line is always supposed to go up and to the right, like a straight line, right? Like it's only more success, only more achievement, only more money, only up. That's how I know I'm winning. And I think that's not life at all. And the cool thing is that life is an adventure because it's not like that. And you don't know what to expect. And so I think ultimately, right? Failure is when you stop getting up. Failure is when you don't heed the signs and you do things that are completely out of alignment with what you need and want when you don't take care of yourself. I honestly needed, some time to be in it and in my feelings about it to accept that because I had just left a corporate job for this. Like, what? And I'd already taken a career break before. I was like, I need a second one. What is this madness? It was really hard to accept at first, but ultimately I created so much more success from having taken a step back, it was mind blowing what came out of that time. Right. And so it wasn't failure because I didn't stop, right? I didn't just
Hmm.
give up, go crawl in a hole and die.
Hmm.
But secondly, I honored what was true for me, and we're humans, not machines. And so if we can't calibrate to meet our own needs, like we're just going to burn out and be, piles of ash, not getting anything done. So for me, it was really, I think when we feel that element of failure, we have to ask ourselves, what are we really failing at? Are we failing at some outdated notion of what success looks like? Because that's not such a bad thing to quote unquote fail at.
Yeah, you need to see me right now. I'm freaking out over here. And I need to quote Jeff Harry from our Inner Critic, Beating the Inner Critic Through Play episode when I say, preach. Thank you. Yes. You're talking about hustle culture. You're talking about these perspectives that we have. Oh, the thing with the line of like, if it's only going up and you're only, getting better and better and more income and success, and it's supposed to be the straight line. Have you ever seen, it's a fabulous like meme. I'm sure that I've posted it somewhere, a deep link on Instagram. Like it's been a while. I need to find it again now. You've inspired me to find it, where it's like you think success is going to look like this and it's a straight line. And then the success is really, I mean, it's so convoluted. It looks more complex than the paths that Jeffy would take on Family Circus. If you remember that cartoon where he's like all over the place. And that's what the meme shows. It's like, that's what success is. And you're absolutely right. We have to ask, what is failure? What are we supposing that we need to be doing in order to consider it success? I'm using the air quotes heavily right now. You're right. To me, I've always said to my kids, I'm like, it's not about how many times you fall down. It's about how many times you get back up. But what I think is really interesting about this is that it's one thing to fall down. It's another thing to intentionally say, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to stay down. I'm going to, check, please. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. Right. That's a huge thing. And that to me, that actually takes a lot of guts.
It really does. And I mean, I say that with complete sincerity and genuine honesty. Like it really does. And I think that that is the power of cultivating self-love, right? Like loving yourself enough to really honor where you're at and to know that you are worthy, even if you are not in the act of doing. Sometimes the doing is happening inside of us and it's behind the scenes and it's the processing and it's the allowing. And we will see amazing results, but we have to give time for those results to become external.
Yeah, I have been likening it to the concept in science where you have like your kinetic and potential energy, right? And kinetic is the doing and it's the active. And I think that we think of that in terms of our productivity all the time with the productivity that we have to be doing. And that just like, can we stop already? And also actually stop, because in the resting, in the breaks, in the quiet is where the reflection happens. And to me, where that potential energy builds, where the healing happens, where the perspective shifts. And I think that is a great segue to get into what does this break do for us when we decide, okay, you know what? I'm calling it, instead of trying to, the nice way that I've said it with my children is instead of doing it by half, but we all know what I mean, right? Okay. Instead of doing it by half, I'm intentionally taking a step back, a step away even. What happens during that time, Katrina?
So many things. So I think this is the key, right? For me, what was true and what I help my clients with is really being intentional about that time. Whether you fall into it accidentally, whether you go into it intentionally, whether you're there begrudgingly, whether you're there with excitement, right? Getting there, being there, realizing you're there, and having some intention and thought around being super clear on what you need to give yourself, and what you want to get out of that experience. So for me, like I said, I was stuck. There was no alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I needed some healing because it just felt like, there was something in me that felt really off. And so for me, right, and what I see for my clients, some of the best things that come out of this time is the reflection and the self-awareness. You get to know yourself on a deeper level. You get to heal things that are unresolved. Like we're humans, we're always going to be healing and growing, right?
Absolutely.
And that's okay. That's totally okay. But one of the most interesting things that came out of my break, which talk about very unexpected. So my younger brother, who was my favorite person, had unexpectedly passed away right before my first career break. But that was 5 years ago. As I was standing in this moment of being on career break number 2, that was 5 years before.
Yep.
And what I learned in my process, it took me a while to uncover this, is that there were extra additional fun layers of grief waiting for me that had not been resolved, had not been dealt with. Like I had dealt with, layers 1 through 28, but there were another 5, like being like, hey, we're ready now. Like deal with this, right? Deal with this, understand this, feel this loss in a different way. So there was some personal healing that went on, but then I also think the perspective and the reflection, right? And so for me in that break, because I had been intentional about following what felt good to me, about following my curiosities, I leaned heavily back into travel and I was traveling around the world again. That's a passion of mine. So I think being intentional to indulge in the things that spark you, that light you up, that bring you alive, and travel is definitely one of those things for me. When you allow yourself to really go in there and to not feel ashamed, or am I being lazy, or am I being too indulgent, or is this responsible? Like when you are like, I am here to feel good and alive and do the stuff that lights me up, I think you reignite that spark. And so for me in that moment, what was true is that I realized I am super sparky about helping people take breaks. That is it, right? Like take a break. You deserve it. It's productive. You've earned it. You've more than earned it. Like we don't need to always be on. And so in that moment, right, it was like all coming together in bits and pieces. And I was like, the reason my business does not feel good is because it is not aligned. I am a person who needs to have a mission, right? To feel like I really want to show up and I'm willing to do the hard things, because I can do hard things all day, but to do them from a place of joy and a place of authenticity, I need that alignment. And I was like, I'm not a career strategist helping people with unconventional career success. I can help people do that. But what I want to talk about, what I want to create, and who I want to serve are people that need breaks.
There you go. And when you discover that, your why, and when you align it, and oh my goodness, we talk about this all the time on the Positively Living podcast, and we're not going to stop. Authenticity episode with Mallory Schleba, we talk about how when you do this, when you step into who you are and what you do and what your mission is so fully, no matter what, no matter how crazy it is, because, I'm definitely a different kind of productivity coach and I'm so okay with that. But given that, when you do that, you become this magnet, which is brilliant because you not only attract those you're meant to be with and be around, be on podcasts with, coach, you name it, but you also repel those that don't fit right with what your mission is, right? And that brings such clarity and simplicity to what you're doing, because you're no longer in the sea of overwhelm.
I love that. So well said. Yes.
Right? Yep. Thank you, Mallory.
On all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, yes. Okay. So given that, this idea of you're taking this break, and I love that you said it could be any number of things. We're going to have to, can we go back to the recording? Like roll back, please, where it's like whether you've done it intentionally or you've done it accidentally or begrudgingly. I think I almost quoted you. I paraphrased you.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing a good job. Yeah.
So no matter what it is, once you're there, this is what you're able to do. And ask, what is it that I need? Oh my gosh, how many times do we do that? The answer, not enough. I mean, it's so rare that we say, what do we need? And you're right with this idea of, am I being productive enough? Am I doing enough? It's always the enoughness. We have to trust that stepping back, taking a break, being in the quiet, finding the things that we love and light us up is truly productive, high energy management. This is not the first time you've heard me say this, nor will it be the last, because it's so important. And even more important than that, what you mentioned of healing. Let me tell you, grief has no timeline. And given that, sometimes we can't get to the healing that we need. All right, I'm going to give you an interesting sort of metaphor or visual, if you will. When you've been like jacked up for a while, ask me how I know, and you're really tense, and you go and you get a massage and they work a bit, but they can't get down deep. And then you go back again, and then you're like, whoa, that's a new area. It's because there are multiple levels, right, of that pain. And that's the same thing with our emotional pain. Shout out to another Mallory Jackson of the Trauma Informed Life episode There's a reason that's number one, because we need to understand that we are constantly managing trauma in our lives. And that doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom. It means that we are humans in need of healing, in need of tenderness and self-compassion. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. And that was like beautiful. That metaphor was really good. I'm keeping that one. I was like, oh
Feel
wow.
free to use it, right?
I felt that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. So given that, so we're there, no matter how we got there, we're there. We have to figure out what we need. What are the practical elements that we need to know? For example, if we do say, I think I might need to step back, it might be nice if I could coordinate this a little instead of just tripping over myself to the break. And what do we do in terms of reentry, if you will?
Yeah. So I think like once you're in one or you know that you want to play in one, right? I think the most foundational thing you can do to set yourself up for success is get clear on your purpose and your needs, which I call themes when I'm coaching with my clients. But basically, it's knowing a very short, it's not a paragraph, it's just a very short reason why this break is so important. Like, why do you need it? Why are you on it? And for me, right, in that second break, my purpose was I can't go anymore. I need to resolve, right? It was like, I can't go. I need to resolve. I need to pivot. And so, and figure things out. So that was my purpose, is like forward does not exist. I cannot go down this path anymore. So I have to find a new way. And then as far as your needs go, which I call themes, are like, what are the themes of your break? And so when I sat with myself and finally owned, Katrina, you're going on break number 2, whether you like it or not. I had to ask myself, what is it that I need from this break? And one of the things was inspiration, which for me came from travel. But the way that I traveled was different because inspiration is different than adventure, is different than learning, right? They're all intimately connected. So it's not like they're mutually exclusive. I can't. But for me, it was like, where do I feel like I'm going to go there and be like, yes. So I went to Italy for a month with a one-way ticket and didn't know how long I was going to stay. And I just ate and ate and ate. And I found the food inspiring, right? Like the meals and the view. And I did a lot of like scenic wandering and just very slow travel, right? I was looking for the inspirational conversations. I was looking for the inspirational geography, right? And just sort of taking it in, but getting clear on what you need. So inspiration was one of the things, right? Clarity was another. So being sure that I'm doing the journaling, or I'm talking to a coach, or I'm having deeper conversations with people that are also in, the personal development space that want to like probe brains a little deeper, but really like trying to get that clarity, where I can. So like I said, it's really like starting with what is my really, short, clear purpose for why I'm on this break, why I need this break. And then what are the 2, 3, or 4 things I need to get from it? And you want to think like higher level, right? Not specific things, but inspiration or learning or, healing, detox, reconnection, connection, all those things. And once you're there, right, you focus on those, you take action on those, you invest your money and your time on meeting those needs in various ways. And then when it's time for reentry, whether you're proactively thinking about reentry before it's upon you or you're in that point of reentry, it's getting clear on what the next right step is. I think so often we're trying to think 10 moves ahead, but the universe doesn't like play by rules. That's so ridiculous, right? To think that, well, if I do this, then the universe will do this. And then if I take this job, or if I make this sale, or if I like, we just don't know. So your one job is to know your next right step, let the universe shift around you, and then figure out your next right step after that, right? And
The universe is a rebel.
Yeah. It really is. Let me tell you, it really is. No rules here.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be stressful if you're being thoughtful about it, right? And so again, just thinking about, am I leaving space to get clear on what I want? Am I really like just focusing on my next right step and what is true for me? Am I planting seeds for that? Whether it's having conversations, hiring someone to help you grow your business, it might be, taking classes or courses that inspire you, or learning the thing you want to learn. But it can be an engaging, experimental, fun sort of like learning period of time if you want it to be. It doesn't have to be hard and heavy, all the time.
I love that. And that kind of simple approach is so important, but even more, what I really love and I want to highlight here, what Katrina's describing is creating filters. I talk about this all the time when we talk about decluttering and what belongs and what doesn't. And when you identify the purpose and needs and you have these high level ideas, you can figure out what fits during this time, right? And then you embrace it, you welcome it, you make a concerted effort to find ways to incorporate it in however, a creative way that you can. And so I love that example of traveling, but your goal or your word, your filter, your concept was inspiration, and yes, there's definitely going to be some overlap and they aren't mutually exclusive. But I think there's a distinction between I'm looking for adventure and I'm going to go to New Zealand and zip line versus I'm looking for inspiration. And you pretty much spoke my language like so much with like, went to Italy and I ate my way through it. I'm like, that's on my bucket list, Katrina. That's so awesome. So yeah, it's taking that time. And another important thing about this, in a way, when you talk about purpose and needs, it's like describing your why, but it's a mini why for the actual break. And let me tell you something, when it comes to taking action, creating habits, doing the things that we need to do, sometimes when it comes to taking breaks, or like we talked about with the hustle culture and everything, or doing something that's just for us, we can struggle with that. But what's interesting is when we have a strong enough why, the how works itself out. So when you touch back on having that why, this is why I'm doing this. This is why it's important that I can't go on anymore like I have been going on. And I need these things. Suddenly you are able to find a way where you might have struggled to do so before, right?
Amen. 100%. That is exactly why you have a purpose, is because it is the why. It is the why for the break.
Yeah.
And it is your North Star when things are really good and you easily get distracted and you're like, oh, my friends want me to go to New Zealand and go ziplining and just get lost, right? But you're like, well, why am I on this break again? Or what is it that I need to get? But
Right.
it's also to your point, right? Like, it gives you so much more power and groundedness when things are hard or challenging. Like it's like rocket fuel, right? To further that mission. And you're grounded in that truth of why this is important. And you're willing and able to do things that you would not normally be, like willing or interested in doing.
Yeah. Like for example, and this happens all the time with my clients, because in the world of productivity, this concept, it's so often that we end up with this, I need to do things. And it's like, that's actually being busy, not necessarily productive. Right. And this is my constant, excuse me, while I step on my soapbox for a moment, but it's so important that we distinguish this, because when you have that proper why, you understand what's going on and what you need to do, suddenly this whole doing nothing, sleeping a lot, other stuff that we couldn't possibly dream would be okay before, is like, that actually is part of what I need to do to accomplish what I've said, my purpose and my needs. And I love that, because it's about time we start embracing that there are so many tools that we've been ignoring, and many times we need to bring them in. And this sounds like an amazing way to do it.
I agree. And it reminds me of when you're sharing that, it reminds me, I was reading a blog from Kate Northrup recently, and she shared, right, there's no perpetual harvest. Like, like that's not the natural cycle of things. And I think we just have a really warped perspective of what we're expecting our bodies and our souls to do. Like that's not ease and flow should be part of that equation, right? And there should be a time to be still and allow things to like foment and grow and, to just sort of cultivate that. And then there's a time to go out and reap the harvest and to find our flow and move forward in that way. But yeah.
I love that. There's definitely a seasonality we need to pay attention to. I think that's it right there. I think we're at a beautiful place to wrap up. Anything else that I didn't ask you that you would like me to?
Well,
anything?
yeah, no, one thing I just want to say is, similar to something aligned with what you had said earlier about, just how far your mission can carry you and take you, just skyrocket you to the place that you want to go. I came back from a 1.5 year break to help people quit their jobs and take career breaks during a global pandemic. Like, that on paper makes no freaking sense. It's like, who does that? A person that doesn't have a very good strategy or brain is probably what many people would think, but that was my mission. And I just, sort of anecdotally want to say the last 5 of the 6 months I've had have been my biggest months in business, period, like including the first more strategic and, like broader reach of business. But I've had so much more success when I really like got aligned with what was true for me. And even though it doesn't make sense on the outside, doing what you're supposed to do, being that magnet, like you said earlier, being that magnet, you call in the right people, you call in the right experiences, and you light yourself all the way up.
Oh, I love that so much. We were just having a conversation before we hit record where I had shared with you that my podcast is now in the top 5% of podcasts worldwide. And so many people love to say, oh, there's too many podcasts out there. And, it's like the market is saturated. And I've been over here going, but I love doing this. I'm going to, it lights me up. I love it. And so I think you can't help but find the success that, when I say success, it's whatever that means for you, but you're going to find that success you're searching for. God, that's easy for me to say. Let me try it again. When you do what lights you up and what you're meant to do. I love that. Thank you. All right. Now, if we want to keep this conversation going with you and stay connected, where can we find you online, Katrina?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram. So I am at K McGhee Coaching. That's KMCGHEE Coaching. And you can find me there. I love, hit me up in the DMs. I love talking to people. I would love to continue the conversation, but you can find me there. And then, I also have a website, which is kmcgeecoaching.com. And you can find out more about what I do there. But just a spoiler, I am excited to be launching a workshop that is geared more towards entrepreneurs and people that want to take shorter breaks, because most of my clients are taking like 6 to 12 month breaks, but I just see a need to help people that have less time or less resources to invest in a break, but find the power of an intentional break. And so if you connect with me on Instagram, you can find out more about that upcoming workshop, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Okay, now let's have some fun with a rapid wrap up, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, so please fill in the blank. The song that always makes me dance is?
Oh, Missy Elliott, Music Make You Lose Control.
Nice
Every time.
Okay. And how about a quote or mantra I share all the time is?
How can I make this even better? This is a question I give myself and my clients to ask when I'm doing anything that either doesn't feel like fun or feels like kind of a little bit of fun, but I think we don't spend enough time asking ourselves, how can we make something even better? And so I love to do that, especially when I'm on road trips.
That's an awesome question. And bonus tip, that is the question you need to ask when you are trying to create a habit of something that is just not your favorite thing, but it's going to be good for you. So awesome. And the resource, book, or app, any of the above, that makes my life easier?
So I have a couple, but one of my favorites, Marco Polo. Do you know Marco Polo, Lisa?
I do. I use Voxer more, but I do know Marco Polo. And that's a great way to keep in touch and do it in a very personality-driven way because, right?
Yes, it's totally true. It has changed my life because, I think my energy is part of what I bring into my client relationships. And so instead of trying to respond to my client's homework by email and trying to like find that tone, Marco Polo allows me so much freedom to communicate in a medium where I feel authentic and I find ease. And so I think I also get to portray more of my personality in that way. So it's just really, it saved me so much time. And I think it's really upped the level of communication and connection.
That's a great suggestion. Okay. And last but not least, what or whom are you grateful for today?
This is going to sound cheesy, Lisa, but it's true. I'm so grateful for you. I am really grateful for you making space to have this conversation. I think it's a conversation that is interesting, but not everybody is willing or wants to have it. And I just really love that you see the value in talking about breaks and giving ourselves permission to do things a little differently than maybe they've been done before. And I just am really excited and really hopeful that together we can, bring this into the awareness of more people who need it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to changing this narrative. So thank you for that. And I most certainly am grateful for you for taking the time and for sharing all that you do. So thank you for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us today.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.